Well, this is part 4 in a series called Getting Started with gCADPlus in the Imperial design environment, typical of designs in the USA. So we're looking at a developing courtyard here. We have a wall running to define the space. There's a rectangle or rectangular paved area. We've applied some hatching. A path reaches from a footpath here. There's a building to the right, a building underneath. Pedestrians can move past the edge of the courtyard, and we're ready now to develop the design a little more. Let's imagine that we wanted to put some benching around to create a seating area, and maybe wooden benching would be your approach to that. What I'm going to do, because we want to zoom in here, we want to put some benching around the edge to define an enclosed area. Maybe we might put some planters in there as well. So we want some bench seating made of wood. It's going to complicate things just a little if we try and do that on top of the hatching. But let's begin by drawing a rectangle. We'll draw rectangle, 2 points, and let's do it over here, and we can move it into position. So we'll make a bench. We'll just make a rectangle first of approximate size, then select the rectangle and just change the width. Let's make it a little longer. Let's make it a 5-foot bench. Remember, everything in gCADPlus is working in decimal feet, and here we might have, if we measured it, 1 foot 7 inches and 3/16 of an inch, we'd type in 1.65. We have a converter that can help you, and there's plenty of them online that can convert from feet and inches into decimal feet. So let's right click now, unselect all. Here is a rectangle that might be used as a bench. If I pick the rectangle, I can move it by right clicking and pick move, and I could pick it up by the center and just move across here. Now what I want to do now, let me unselect all. I want to put some lines and a fill and a color appropriate for a bench. And can you see that the paving itself is getting in the way? So what I'm going to do is make a new layer. I'll come up here, and some of these layers, plant construction, plant symbol and title block, are all part of the gCADPlus environment. But I'm going to make a new one, and we'll call this layer, I always prefix layer names with L dash. The reason for that is we sometimes exchange drawings with other professionals, architects, surveyors and others, and if we start our layer names with L dash, we know it's a landscaping layer, and that's a convention used by the American Institute of Architects, and a sensible one. So let's just call this L hatch, so it's a landscape layer specifically for hatching. I'll come back here and tick the green tick there. So, whoops, layer 1 is, I need to double click it because we need to change. I did not hit the enter key. L hatch. I need to, in a sense, burn that in. So the current layer is layer 0. There's nothing on layer hatch for the moment. Let's OK it, and we can pick the hatching, come over here to the properties box and just click here and move it onto layer hatch. Unselect all, come back to the layer and take L hatch and turn it off. So the hatching is moved out of the way, and now we can concentrate on our bench seating. What we might do is add some horizontal lines, in this case to represent horizontal boards. So we can again do that with the hatch option. So hatch, we'll pick first a pattern, and you can see I've rehearsed this, parallel horizontal lines, and there are lots of other hatch patterns here. We need to change the scale. At the moment the density is 40, which I think is a little high. We try and aim for a density maybe around 5. So we will click into scale, and I may have to adjust it later. We'll hit 5, and why did that not work? Let's try that again. Select the entity, hit the enter key, and apply the pattern. And the sequence is important. Now you might want that a little closer together, so let's try 3, maybe 2. You can see I'm just tweaking things until I get the sort of result that I want. What I'm then going to do is just use a crossing window and select all of that bench, and we'll pick a suitable colour. And just scroll down through here, you have a lot of choice of different colours. We'll pick a sort of a soft browny colour, and we'll unselect all. I'd also be inclined to move the hatchback away from the same brown colour, and I hope you see why. I'm going to make that by layer. Now we've got black lines on that timber colour, and I'm going to pick the rectangle and say yes, it's filled, and unselect all. So there we are, we have a single rectangular entity with some lines applied to it. I'm going to pick the entity again, and I'm going to say yes, it does have a border, and I'll pick a border colour of 251. So to my mind, that entity there now looks to be reminiscent of some sort of benching that we might put in. And we're going to use that over and over again, but what we can do in gCADPlus is turn that into what's called a block, rather like the plant symbols. So we just select everything that we want inside a window, and then right click, and we'll create a block, and we'll just call it bench. You could prefix it with, oops, that's a Z bench. You could prefix it with the dimensions of the bench if you wanted to, and as a pick point, I'll just pick in the middle, and then we'll OK. So it's now what's called a single block, and we can now copy it, move it around and arrange things. So let's copy it. Now we could copy from the midpoint, and because polar's on, we can move the bench there and right click and finish. We could copy this one and just move it down like so. Unselect all and select and rotate around the insertion point there, and then possibly just move it into position like so. So we're just arranging the benching in that space. You might even wish to copy it down again like so. So we've got a nice enclosed sort of area here. You might want to introduce other things like other chairs and symbols and things, and they are all in the library. Fire pit like so, bring that one in. I can't locate quickly and easily what we're after, but you could, for the sake of argument, have a fire pit in that position. I'll just specify the block size by clicking. There's the fire pit in position. You may want to move it. And then of course you could move the seating around appropriately. At any point in time we can come back to the layers, and we can then turn on the hatch layer, and that hatching will reappear. So there's our symbology for some elements at least in that paved area. I think the next thing to show you is to produce some detailed dimensions for the construction team. So to apply a dimension to, say, the wall through here, you apply an external or an internal dimension. Let's do it externally for the moment. We'll pick this tool here, linear dimensions, and this time you want some precision, so we will dimension from that endpoint there to another endpoint here, and I'll just move my line up. So that part of the wall is automatically dimensioned. The dimension is taken from the model itself, and that is it's a very good recap of your own accuracy. So let's pick another dimension. The dimension which runs along a line at an angle is called an aligned dimension. So we'll pick this one, and again I'll select the snap override there and come down there and right click, snap override, and again we want another endpoint there, and there's that endpoint. Now I prefer to put dimensions on their own layer, so we do the same sort of thing as we did with the hatching. So I make a layer called LDIM, and I'll make sure I hit the enter key at this point, so that's burnt in, and then I can take these and move them to their own layer. I can do that by coming over to the properties box and move to layer LDIM. If I was going to do an extensive amount of dimensioning, I would make the active layer LDIM as we have here, and let's pick another dimension for the outer part of the wall down to here, and then position the dimension like so. Repeat it, so I just hit the enter key. So the design is taking place, and if we move to our layout space, again the dimensions show as it is on this preset one. And now we have to dive in here and either increase the size or reposition the cutout where we're looking from the layout space into the model space. And there we are, there we have it. So the design is developing. My next step will be to show you how to relatively easily add some text information. And to do that, one of the simplest ways of, you want to indicate to your clients what's essential and what's important in this design. And we do that. I'm going to switch back to layer 0, and we're going to put some text on layer 0. And one of the simplest ways to do that is to use what's called a leader. So we can zoom in here and say, click arrowhead position, come down here, and then we could say perhaps put caps lock on, and say access to entertaining area, and hit enter, and in that goes. See, the arrowhead shows nicely. Handle the problem if I wanted all of the labeling text in uppercase. What you can do is say I'm going to format a text style, and I'll say there's going to be a new text style, and I'm going to pick one called uppercase. Here it is, uppercase 2. So I have a style called in fact style 2. Just to help you, I would always call that one uppercase. And now I pick that piece of text and just change its style from the standard style to uppercase. Now, why don't we have style uppercase? Format, text styles, it's just style 2. And once again, I didn't click in here. I didn't hit the enter key at the appropriate time. Uppercase, do that, and we're okay. Now we should be able to click in here and change the text style. Of course, that's the leader style. I am confusing you no end, but what I need to do is go into dimensions and the dimension style, and in text here I need to change the text style to uppercase. So put in the leader again, down like so. So applying labeling in that way can be really easy. Why it's so good is that you can just click and move your text around, or your labels can be applied quite easily. And you can even say copy that one and mark a point here and click in there and say fire pit. And because we have a text style defined as uppercase, which I must have hit the caps lock. So let me take off caps lock. It's off. Fireplace, and hit enter. Oh dear, I'm having spelling problems. Fireplace, and do that. Now I can just move again, wrong handle, move it by moving it like so. Try and line things up as neatly as you can. So you can see the label looks good. So we have dimensions showing, we have some text in. We can pretty things up even more by putting some hatching along this path. But I now wanted to show how easily you can generate a final print. It's by no means final, but this is as far as I want to take you, and I would hope that you would develop these ideas up much more than I have here. So let's come back to the landscape plan on the C size sheet. There it is, nicely laid out. I'm going to change the colour of this one to 255 so that floating viewport now disappears. All of the changes that we've made, the benching and the fire pit location, are all showing, as is the dimensioning, and we could easily update the address here. So let's imagine this is a concept and we want to send it to the client. We can get a high resolution by printing it to a PDF writer, and maybe we'll try that. We'll go File and Print. So we're going to print to a PDF writer. Our paper, I think, was architectural size C, so we might just change this now, see if we can get architectural C, and we're going to go in landscape and the properties. I noticed it was 300 by 300, so let's pump our quality up to 1200. We'll apply that, we'll go OK and OK. So we're going to put it on an A3 piece of paper. It's nearly 1:1, which is exactly what we want, and we could preview it. That looks fine, and we hit our enter key and OK it. So it's now going to produce a proper PDF version of our design at high resolution, and again we'll put it on the desktop and show you the results shortly. Well, the high resolution print has now been done, and now I'm using Adobe Acrobat Reader and having a look at it. We need to rotate the image, and to do that I'll go View and rotate the view and rotate it clockwise, And there we are. And I'm quite happy with the result. So I hope that has taken you along a little journey when using gCADPlus, the Imperial version of gCADPlus, and just help you get started with some of the tools that are available to us. Remember that we haven't put a scale bar in, we haven't put a floating viewport here to give you access to the planting schedule, but all that is covered in the manual that comes with gCADPlus. So good, happy designing.